Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's get right to what America's talking about. It's official. The Epstein bill is now a law. President Trump announcing on Truth Social that he just signed the legislation, and he's insisting that the release of the files will impact Democrats more than Republicans. That's despite the overwhelming support in Congress for the measure. He also, again, called it a hoax. So, what's next? The clock is now ticking for the Justice Department to actually release the files. They have 30 days to do so according to the law, and 15 days to explain to Congress any redactions that they might make. There has been, though, some speculation that the DOJ may withhold some of these documents due to the new active investigations that Trump just called for last week into some Democrats who were mentioned in the Epstein emails. Pam Bondi was asked about that possibility, and she was noticeably vague. Listen.
Does the new investigation by the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney prevent the department from releasing all of the remaining files?
So we have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law.
What are you doing here over the next 30 days as we understand it?
We will continue to follow the law with maximum transparency.
Do you mean that you will provide all the files by 30 days?
We will follow the law, and again, we will continue to follow the law.
Follow the law, she says. It's unclear exactly what that even means, but Congressman Thomas Massie, who spearheaded this legislation, says that his bill was crafted in a way that took those concerns into account.
You can't have 2 or 3 ongoing investigations and claim that you're not going to release any of the Epstein files, because our bill, the law that she says she's going to follow, says that the exceptions for ongoing investigations have to be narrowly tailored to the investigation. They would have to jeopardize the investigation, and they can only be temporary. So she doesn't have carte blanche to withhold a whole tranche of files.
All right, so that's what the law says. However, Ellie Honig, I do feel like this administration has, in many cases, repeatedly flouted laws passed by Congress, to be honest. Do you think that there would be a legitimate reason for them to make redactions? I think these are the concerns I hear. People are worried about redactions. They're worried about withholding of information. They're worried about them using these new cases as just an excuse to withhold large tranches of documents. Do you think any of those things are real concerns?
Well, there's a bright spotlight now on Pam Bondi because she's going to be the one who has decision-making authority, discretion over what do we produce and what do we not produce. Now, the law provides basically 2 major categories that she can redact out. One is uncontroversial, victim identities, right? Everyone agrees we need to protect the privacy, the confidentiality of victims. The more controversial category, though, is ongoing criminal investigations. That's going to be up to Pam Bondi. And yes, just a few days ago, they suddenly announced, after months of saying nothing to see here, actually we're opening up some brand new criminal investigations. Unclear exactly what they are, unclear exactly how broad that redaction pen can be used. And we just heard Representative Massie saying, well, we're going to make sure that she only uses it very narrowly as she's supposed to do that by law. I respect that. I think that's a good approach. The problem is, no one's going to know. There's going to be no way to challenge it.
We don't know what we don't know. That's
right.
The problem, Tara, with these Epstein files,
right.
Is that we actually don't know what the universe is. And so they could say they're releasing it all, and they may not be releasing it all.
Right, and there's even an exception for national security. And so what does that mean, right? I mean, that could mean anything at all concerning the president. They might say, that impacts our national security if it releases any information about the president that could be compromising. So they can use that caveat. And as we know, the Department of Justice has never been that great at policing itself. And so I don't know that you can really take Pam Bondi at her words when she was saying back in, I think, March, I've got the Epstein list on my desk. And then in July, there is no Epstein list. There are no third-party perpetrators. Oh, wait, there are, but they're all Democrats. So let's spend our time investigating them. Reopen the files, and everything else is blocked off.
Let me just play how this is going with some of Trump's supporters, some of the people who I think backed him and helped him win re-election. This Epstein situation has driven a wedge. Listen to this.
This is the end of the Trump administration. This is the beginning of the lame duck presidency. It's obvious to everyone, even his most ardent supporters show up to the White House, like Laura Ingraham, and she's kind of shocked, going, what the hell's going on?
Epstein Files I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man.
He wants an investigation now.
Listen.
Like, what is going on?
Brad, how does Trump regain credibility?
Well, there's an old song from the 60s called Last Train to Clarksville, and I think this is the last train on Epstein. They have to take advantage of the mandate that Congress has sent them and dump it. Discharge petition was the wrong way to do it. I don't think Congress should ever use a discharge petition. I don't think any speaker in either party should allow it. But that's passed now, and he's chosen to sign the law. They need to do it. And the victims who have come forward and had the courage to push this far, they need to give them closure. It's time to do that. And I think that'll allow the president to move on and talk about things in his agenda that he wants to talk about. This has dogged the administration since July. It's not, and dragging it out will not help them politically.
Well, in all due respect, it's dogged the administration since July because they ran on releasing them, right? Like they said, hey, if you elect us, we will release this. We will get all these pedophiles. We'll get all these bad guys. And then as soon as they were elected, they were like, we're doing it. Here they are. Here are the binders. Here's what we're going. Actually, we don't have it. Actually, we do have it, but it's only going to be Democrats. So I don't even know why we have made it into this political football, because ultimately this isn't red team, blue team, right? This is like the law. Who cares what their politics is? If you have an international cabal of pedophilic men who are out there around the world, you want to bring them to justice, no matter what their politics is. So I think this whole thing has been kind of a convoluted shell game that the president has played with us. And now he's releasing them, but that's right after he put out, his potential investigations that might hold up the information that might.
It didn't have to be a partisan thing, as the original whistleblower in the case noted in the New York Times today. 5 administrations ignored them, Democrat and Republican. So it didn't have to become that. It's become that because of obfuscation and trying to reject calls to put it out because they don't want to be pushed around or I don't know what. But they can dump it now and start over.
Why? I think that's a good question.
I think I can.
Why is it that Trump has made this, his last stand, the thing that until this weekend he would not allow? I mean, I don't even know. I just put aside the implications about him. Why is this such a big issue for him? Why does it make him so angry? Why does he send so many truth socials about it? Make it make sense.
I have a suspicion that most of what we're going to see in these files are not going to be anything legally actionable, because the FBI already put out a memo over the summer saying that they looked through them and there's nothing that's legally actionable in these documents. And that came from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who spent how many years on podcasts saying that they were going to uncover this massive
That's
scandal.
when they were trying to stop it from being released. Because now they're launching an investigation into Democrats.
I think most of what we're going to be seeing are conversations like the one between Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard, and Jeffrey Epstein, where he was asking him for dating advice. And Jeffrey Epstein is the last person I would be asking for dating advice.
So you're saying that it's all going to come down to high-profile Democrats?
No,
that's what I'm saying.
Come on, man. Okay, what we saw was that those were emails from the estate, and maybe they are included as part of discovery. But what you're going to see is depositions from the victims, and if they are not redacted with the names of the perpetrators of the men that they are accusing, you will also see photos, videos. You will see actual call logs, full flight logs. Like, if you actually see the full files, it's not just going to be banter between bros.
But
again, that might come up in discovery, but this is a real large piece of investigation, 330 gigabytes, right?
If I can ask you a quick question, and then I'll let you jump in. Taking a step back on all of this, and to Brad's point, 5 administrations have failed to act, right? So why, if there is all this evidence, which actually I think Tara is right, there probably is, because there is the prospect that they could withhold some of these photos because they depict children. If that exists, why on earth has no one but Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell been charged? What is going on here?
Exactly the question. And I think this is the number one question driving the victims. It cannot possibly be true that the only 2 people to commit crimes here were Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is a much larger ring than that. And to your point, Jamie, it is actually theoretically possible that more people could be charged if there is evidence, if there is will within DOJ to do it, something there's not been, as Tara correctly says, for a long time. If they can show that, we're not going to name names, but if some person was involved in moving a child, an underage person, across a state line for sexual purposes, the statute of limitations are generally out the window when it comes to federal interstate sex trafficking of a minor. So it's not impossible. And, you know,
But is it, are the lower, I mean, I don't want to call it lower charges, but are there other things that are harder than that? Like if there are people who engaged in sexual acts with children, but they didn't cross state lines, is that the hard thing to do?
That is the trick. And I hate to say it, but it's the reality. If you can show somebody that sexually assaulted a child without that interstate element, it's not going to be federally chargeable. It would only be a state crime and harder to charge. So yes, if we're talking just about somebody who sexually abused a child, we should know that. But what's going to make them federally chargeable is that crossing of a state line.
Can I ask the legal expert something?
Can we hit pause on this? We're going to actually resume right at the other side of this break. Next for us, Trump threatens to fire his Treasury Secretary if interest rates aren't cut, just as the White House says it won't be releasing key economic data from last month. Plus, a Democrat avoids a censure after it was revealed that she was texting Jeffrey Epstein during a committee hearing. Why Republicans are accusing leaders in both parties now of shady backroom dealings to save her job. That's next. And we're back talking about the Epstein saga. Lee, you had a question.
Yeah, I did. Because we were talking about the amount of administrations that had ignored this. And I was like, but did they? Because he was given a sweetheart deal back in the early 2000s, right?
In the state of Florida.
In the state of Florida. But still, like, they knew about him, right? So they've sort of let it pass. So let me ask you then, if we knew about him back then, that's not multiple administrations ignoring it. That's a couple administrations ignoring it since 2008. Because two of them are Trump.
1996, because that's when Maria Farmer called the FBI to report that she and her sister were molested by Jeffrey Epstein, and the FBI did not actually investigate it. So that goes back to the Clinton administration.
So why do you think that the administrations were turning a blind eye to someone so obvious?
Well, I think that it had to do with the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was a valuable asset to our intelligence agencies, and I'm not just talking about like FBI, CIA. He was a part of one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history back in the 90s. It was called Financial Towers. His partner, Stephen Hoffenberg, died in prison because of this. He spoke to prosecutors 3 times. He then helped them out on a Bear Stearns financial case that they were working on. He had access to very powerful people. He was likely a hyperfixer and continued to trade in information. And I think that they saw him as a valuable source ultimately and thought that he had more value to them. It's almost like a Whitey Bulger deal.
And we got hints about that. His trading of information, even going into more recent times. And this is what has gotten Democratic Representative Stacey Plaskett in trouble, that she was communicating with Jeffrey Epstein during congressional hearings. And she and other Democrats were asked about this today. Here's what they had to say.
During the very high-profile Michael Cohen hearing, Stacey Plaskett was in direct communication with Jeffrey Epstein. Why are you okay with that?
In a bipartisan way, the resolution that was introduced targeting Stacey Plaskett was defeated. There was a dramatic overreach related to throwing her off her committees.
However ill-advised it may have been, she took a phone call from one of her constituents.
I think Jeffrey Epstein is a reprehensible person. Absolutely disgusting. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information, and I was going to get information to get at the truth.
So no regrets, basically, is what you're saying.
I'm moving forward.
Okay, there's an important cutoff here.
He wasn't just any constituent. He was a constituent who owned 2 islands. 2 islands.
Also, this is important.
In the Virgin Islands that she represents.
In 2008,
very powerful person.
Jeffrey Epstein got a sweetheart deal. He was being investigated federally. Alexandra Acosta, who then passed it over to the state, where Jeffrey Epstein pled to soliciting a minor for prostitution. That's in 2008. So Stacey Plaskett knew that when she's taking his phone calls in 2019. Hard to wiggle out of that.
It's going to shock most Americans to know that the Virgin Islands has allowed a non-voting member of Congress that their tax dollars have to support. But it's not going to surprise them that Hakeem Jeffries doesn't have the spine to stand up and say she did something wrong. It's crazy the hypocrisy we've seen from House Democrats on this whole subject. They were not interested in this topic at all until they thought it would embarrass Donald Trump. And Hakeem Jeffries is going to go down in history as a pretty big coward over it.
I think part of the story here today is now that the bill has been signed, right? We're on the cusp of maybe seeing the Epstein files, but the the real struggle will begin now, because there are still a lot of powerful people who are probably in these files, a lot of reasons to not go after them, to investigate them. I don't know, it just feels like we're not even close to out of the woods here on this story.
It's such a big conspiracy. It is probably one of the biggest conspiracies of our lifetime.
And when you say conspiracy, I mean, people will hear, oh, this is just some kind of like thing that people.
I mean that so many people were
conspiring
conspiring together to make this happen. It was probably one of the largest sex trafficking operations that involved some of the most powerful people that run all the top institutions, from academia to finance to politics, heads of states, foreign dignitaries. It was so vast, and it also likely included corruption within our own government to give him that sweetheart deal, and then understanding why. I mean, it is just so vast, and the cover-up that continues to this day.
Why is there not a single person, other than the two, Epstein and Ghislaine, not a single person has been accused and had a legal case about this?
But as we've been
not a single person.
They have.
There was a French guy who killed
We
himself.
had the Alan Dershowitz thing where he said he kept his underwear on during his massages. There's been
Jeffrey lied about him. She lied about him.
That's according to Alan Dershowitz.
No, she
that was
admitted,
after they
there
had
was a defamation lawsuit.
I don't know why you're defending an international sex ring. It seems so
weird. Because there's no
weird.
evidence of it yet. That's all.
There's no evidence.
What do you mean there's no evidence? We
Sex
literally
ring.
yes, an international sex ring.
There's evidence of Jeffrey Epstein being a pedophile.
The FBI
There has not been evidence yet of an international sex ring.
Why did Prince Andrew
The FBI has said there is
title then? That's an international incident.
Just him. That's all. That's the only person who's
I
had
don't know
any
why you're doing
repercussions
this.
about
I
this.
literally don't understand
Because I believe
people
in
who take.
facts. I
You
believe
believe
we're
in
waiting
facts.
until the facts
Wait,
come out.
when the
You believe in
FBI
it
said
until
that
the
there were
facts come out.
1,000 victims, do you believe them when the FBI said that there were 1,000 victims?
If the FBI is saying that, then I have no reason to disagree. But is that an international sex trafficking?
Well, we know from the flight logs that they moved young girls from one place
but were
to
they
another.
were they serving other men other than Epstein?
Yes, we know that they moved Virginia Roberts from where she was in Florida over to the UK, where
For
she
Andrew,
serviced
yes.
Andrew. So
Right.
that would make it an international.
So is that the only? Is that the
No,
only?
there are many
What
others.
are the
We're
other
gonna
ones?
find out
But who are the men? Who
But
are the
Jamie,
men?
are you really suggesting?
Oh my God!
Are you really suggesting that this is not as vast as it
Yes, as
very
the
much
media is
appears
making it out to be, and as opportunistic politicians
So you
are
think
making it out to be,
1,000
yes.
victims?
What about Jess Staley?
One of the most globally powerful and wealthy men, and you really think that this was just a sort of mom and pop type of operation?
I think Jeffrey Epstein was a horrendous pedophile. I think former Prince Andrew is guilty of this as well. I have yet to see, there has not been a legally adjudicated case against anyone else.
Well,
that hasn't
they've
happened
been
yet.
covering it up, right? That's what we've just had a vote on.
Look, I will be the first person to say on this show, anywhere else, if these files prove that there is an international sex ring with other men that you can bring evidence against in a court of law, I will be the first to admit, yes, there's an international sex ring.
I will just say that I think Jamie's not wrong in the sense that we don't have the actual evidence yet. However, I do think that there is a lot to suggest that there's a lot that's being hidden.
Sure. Well,
and Ellie, I mean, for the DOJ, I think part of the biggest problem that we have now is, to your point earlier in the previous segment, which is that DOJ can be transparent, sure, but they can also not be transparent, and we may never know. That's a very unsatisfying thing for people to realize, is that there's no backstop here. There's nobody forcing justice to happen.
I think it's really important that we be clear on this point. DOJ and Pam Bondi can withhold essentially whatever they want under this law, the way it is framed. They can say they're investigating, they might actually be investigating. And so if the idea here is to reassure the American public, you're going to have all the information, you're going to have all the answers, I don't think this bill accomplishes that. Does it move the ball forward? Does it give us more than we had before? Sure, but is anyone going to be able to say with any degree of confidence, other than top DOJ officials, this is all? No.
Should they have created some kind of independent commission to look through this stuff rather than placing it inside the executive branch?
They've already
Been in the
started
executive
redacting
branch. It's been in the
it.
executive branch for 2 decades.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like taking it out of the executive branch and creating some kind of independent entity of experts to go through it and decide what gets released. I mean, I feel like that might have been a better way to do this than just saying, well, Trump
Yeah, I mean,
administration
they
released
should
it.
have, but
Who would have the credibility for that? I'm
so
not sure.
Bloomberg reported back in August that when they put in a Freedom of Information request for Epstein files, that they found that they came back with President Trump's name redacted, according to 3 sources of the hundreds of pages, that they're already redacting them right now.
Well, there's no way that Trump would have agreed to release them if he thought it was going to incriminate him, right? So there's no way. His name is already
There's a very
being
low chance
redacted.
that he would be incriminated, or else his political opponent, Joe Biden, would have released it during the campaign.
I don't know why
That's
people
not
keep
actually
saying that. That's
true.
not actually
I don't
true.
think that's true because
No.
I think that it would have made a lot of Joe Biden's associates look bad as well.
Joe Biden was very,
he could have
very
selectively
separate from
released
his
the
own
ones
Justice
You will never
Department.
convince me that career prosecutors who, in their own email, said they would do anything to take down Donald Trump would not have also released files that they thought would take him down.
The old, this story brings down the old guard of the Democratic Party.
Let me give you a little
It's
inside DOJ here. First of all this is so unusual. You would never open up your files like this, but now there's a law passed because of political will, and so be it. Also, we're going to be seeing a lot of names, and there's going to be debates just like this. Did this person do wrong? Did this person commit crimes? Should this person be investigated? Get ready. This is going to be a conversation we're going to have a lot over the next month or two.
All right, coming up for us, affordability is the new A word in the White House, and Americans' high anxiety about affordability are taking a toll on the president's approval rating. That's next. Finally, the long-delayed September jobs report will come out tomorrow, but don't expect to see one for October. That's because the Labor Department is scrapping it over the government shutdown, and instead, that data will be rolled into November. The jobs report is a key economic survey, and without it, we can't really see the full picture of where the United States' economy has been. And so, here's the snapshot we can see. New polling shows that Trump's approval rating has plunged to the lowest of his second term. And it's even worse when it comes to his handling of the economy. And despite all of that, Trump is playing it cool.
Every leader is saying the United States, we're the hottest country in the world. We're going to keep it that way, too. I would never say a thing like that because I want to be very modest. I always want to be modest as I can. They say this has been the best 9 months that any president has ever had.
Always one to be modest. Teslin is back at the table with us. So I am actually flabbergasted that this administration that ran on lowering prices has only discovered in November that this is something that voters want to hear about and want action on.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's time. You know, we talked about this on last week, that now the conversation is going to switch to affordability. Democrats have an opportunity here to talk about how the prices have not went down, how stuff is steady rising, and what is their plan. Winning in November, they won on affordability all over the country. And my question I keep asking over and over, Abby, what are they doing for the midterms? What benches are they building?
The Democrats?
Absolutely. What are the Democrats doing to tackle this messaging? Because Trump is absolutely going to flip it his way.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, it's actually interesting because Democrats have an advantage right now on this. There's a Fox poll today showing that two things. One, that voters trust Democrats more than Republicans on affordability, on raising wages, on creating jobs, okay? And then when you ask voters, how's the economy doing? 25% say excellent or good. 76% say fair or poor. I mean, Brad, how can this be?
Well, there are three things Republican has to succeed on in order to win. Number one is foreign affairs. President Trump, as Harry Enton pointed out on CNN's air this morning, has one of the highest approval ratings on foreign affairs any president in recent memory has had. Number two is the border. Republicans have to be seen as secure on the border. He can do that and is seen as strong on that. Third is the economy. He simply has to get right on the economy over the next 11 months. It has to be the administration's focus. He has to explain what he's doing and why. He's brought down the cost of prescription drugs, cars, and fuel. That's a good place to start. He needs to explain that and explain what he's doing to fix the rest of it.
He's rolling back the tariffs that he put in place.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? He put in a ton of tariffs in place, and then he's walking his tariffs back and saying he's lowering prices. I think he would think we would have to be so stupid to see that I fixed the thing that I broke is a problem. And I think even the most right wing. Well, as someone that honestly lives on prescription drugs, then the problem becomes healthcare, because I know that my prescriptions are extraordinarily expensive, but that's with the Affordable Care Act. Right. And my Affordable Care Act is going from $3,700 a month to $4,300 a month.
The Affordable Care Act is poorly designed and it's driving out competition.
Sure, you could say it's poorly designed.
A wealth
but then
for insurance companies and PBMs.
Okay, my point is, your side of the aisle knows that the prices are bad. They knew that the job numbers were bad in the summer, so they fired the girl that gave us the numbers. They knew that the job numbers were bad in August, so they hired a yes man to do it. Then they didn't release them for October because the job numbers are terrible. And they know that the economy is terrible because they're on Fox News saying, by the way, for Christmas this year, you don't need to buy gifts for anyone over 18 or anyone under 3.
Let me play that soundbite.
Do you have that? Oh my God.
Stop. Remember, adults don't need gifts, okay? Focus on the people in your life who are age 3 to 18. Grandma doesn't need slippers. If they don't live by you, don't get them a gift.
What? Bro, if you want to talk about killing Christmas, like they are literally priming their audience for not having enough money to buy presents. So you tell me you think the economy's good? You are wrong.
Don't get your grandma those slippers. What does she need slippers for?
I have a question. I'm sorry, because when you brought up healthcare, how being poorly designed, what's the plan? Because right now, my aunt is watching right now, Ella Figueroa, who was in the hospital just this week for pneumonia. She cleaned those same hospital floors and literally could not get help and assistance at Baptist Hospital in Oklahoma City. So I want to know, since it's poorly designed, what is going to be the plan when millions of people lose their health care because they cannot afford it in January?
Well, we're talking about subsidies that were designed during COVID to compensate insurance companies for the excess losses they were taking due to COVID care, which no one could have foreseen. Everyone agreed to do that. Then Joe Biden extended them temporarily twice when COVID was not a thing. The money goes straight to the insurance companies. United Healthcare last year made $14.4 billion of profit.
Well, pardon me, but I don't think that's what she's asking.
Yeah.
I'm telling you how that Affordable Care is poorly designed. It's driving up premiums on everyone.
I think the question is that one of the biggest pieces
we need to start over. Don't you think we should scrap the Affordable Care?
So when are you starting?
Right. So what's the plan?
As soon as Democrats are ready, we will scrap it and start over.
You are in charge of the government in all levels.
No, it takes 60 people to pass something in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, but what do you want to pass? What have you presented?
You need that. We need more competition in the insurance industry. President Trump's doing more pressure on
So what happens
drug
in January
prices.
then?
There you go.
Well,
yeah. What happens in January?
Literally.
The insurance companies should not pass this cost on to the American consumers. They're holding the government hostage. United Healthcare makes $14 billion a year in profit. Centene makes $3 billion a year in profit. And they're demanding the taxpayers keep that profit level up. Democrats should work with Republicans to scrap the ACA and lower this corporate welfare insurance company.
Okay, don't you think it's a little weird that if this is such a huge issue in which Americans could die, okay,
and will
they
die.
could die and will die, that the president is hanging out with MBS and going to a McDonald's and traveling all around the world? And you said that international affairs are why
The public
Americans
says he's
vote.
doing a great job on the international
No one
affairs.
goes out and votes because of international affairs. They go out and vote because of affordability, and they go out
they don't
because
vote
of
for
health
Democrats
care.
because of it, but Republicans have
I
to
think
be
that
strong
Tara
on,
is totally right about
on
that.
foreign affairs.
He's
The last
completely
several,
lost.
it has been more than a decade since international affairs has been a driving force.
Joe
in American
Biden's poll numbers
politics.
started dropping because of Kabul. We know that's when it started.
Yeah, but he
was
lost the
weak.
election because of domestic
His slide
affairs.
began on Kabul.
As
We
you
know
said,
that.
as you just said, the economy and the border. That is why he lost the election.
I mean, it might not be politically smart for him to be doing these foreign affairs initiatives and meeting with MBS, but look, he's the president of the United States. He has to do this. Saudi Arabia is a very important strategic partner of the United States.
Sure.
He has to engage in these things, and there's a lot going on in the world. I mean,
Well, you know what he didn't have to do,
the
though? He
question
didn't
is-
have to make excuses for the Saudi Arabian leader who chopped up and killed a journalist.
What Tara is asking, though, is where is Trump when it comes to using the levers of government that he controls to make a big swing on the things that really matter to Americans?
He lowered
On
taxes for
health-
every tax-paying American.
Hello, hold on.
And he raised costs.
If that were
so
enough,
that
if that were
That
enough,
is
we wouldn't
something
be having
you
this.
said he had to do something.
Hey,
for
Brad, if that were enough, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We're having this conversation because Americans think that the economy is not going well.
Can you
and
imagine
Trump
what
isn't
they would
doing
think if
anything
their
about it.
taxes went up on January
And
1
on
as
top
Democrats
of
wanted?
that,
Every House Democrat
and on
voted to
top
raise
of that,
taxes January
Donald
1.
Trump has been running on repealing and replacing Obamacare since he came down that escalator. Where is the replacement?
Well, I can't speak to that, but I can say that I think the reason why he hasn't done a big swing on the economy, his big swing was tariffs. And the effect, and it's failed. Clearly it's failed. The effective tariff rate in the United States right now, I just found this out today, it's 10 times what it was last year. 10 times. Those costs are all passed on to the consumers. I think, as we know, Donald Trump, he's despite being a modest man, he has trouble admitting when he's wrong about something. And it's going to be very difficult for him to admit that he was wrong on this signature initiative of his. I mean, he's been calling himself the tariff man for a decade.
Well, not just a decade, many decades.
Many decades. It's very consistent about it. But
we do have to leave it there, though. In a remarkable case of nothing to see here, the full James Comey grand jury never actually saw the final indictment against him, and the judge is appalled. But will this be enough to get that case tossed out? We'll be right back. And so for tonight's nightcap, if money was not an object, what would you bid high dollars for? Jamie, you're up first.
I say that it would probably be any kind of writing implement from Mark Twain, whether a pen or a typewriter. He's one of my favorite writers. He's really one of America's greatest writers. And I actually looked into this before I came on, and Mark Twain did have a typewriter, but he actually really didn't like using it. And he wrote a very funny letter to the maker of the typewriter, which you can find online, where he complains about all the problems he has with the typewriter. So,
fair enough. Yeah, typewriters kind of sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to what we have now. But anyway, go ahead.
Mine is really weird because I'm cheap and I don't buy anything at all. Like, I'm absolutely don't want to buy anything at all. But when I had to think about it, I always tell you I'm in law school. I am obsessed with the O.J. Simpson trial. I grew up watching that case. I watch it like pretty much every other night. The original trial. Abby's looking at me like, wow. So if I could,
I was like
I know, like every motion passed. So if I could buy the trial notes, I've had a chance to meet Carl Douglas, but the trial notes on the strategy and what they talked about from the state and the defense and all of the evidence, and I would just, I would buy that.
My mom would bid with you on that.
Yes.
Split the cost if you want.
Get this lady a law degree. That's real dedication, actually. Wow. All right, Tara.
Mine is much more vapid. I would buy Marie Antoinette's jewelry, all of it, and just wear it around the house.
Yeah. Is it good? Have you seen it?
I just feel like really regal. Yeah, I mean, the diamonds are massive. And they think that she had the Hope diamond at one point. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, she was a rich lady, you know?
and really didn't care what you thought about her.
Yeah, just be completely absurd. And also, it's obviously incredible to have that. So.
Yeah, all right.
I'm terrible at this game. My son likes to play this game all the time. If you had this money from the lottery, what would you do? And I'm like, I'd buy a house because I'm never going to be able to buy a house in this stupid country. And I'd pay for my health insurance. And I'd do all this boring stuff. Yeah, sure. If it's a fun game, I would buy a Rothko, right? But I need a wall to put it on. So being an American, we can't really have fun anymore with this game because we really just need money for healthcare and housing and education.
Man.
How boring am I?
All right.
We need bourbon, too. I'm from Appalachia, so I would pick the very best bourbon ever made, Pappy Van Winkle's 23-year-old bourbon. I'd share it with you all, too, if I had it.
Okay.
That's a
pricey bourbon is actually not a bad idea. I'm kind of with you on buying a house. I'd buy a really nice house in Italy somewhere on a hill where no one can find me. And I would just sit there and drink wine. All right.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. If you like this show, please rate, subscribe, comment, share this with all of your friends. If you like my reporting, go to tarapalmeri.com and sign up for my newsletter, The Red Letter. It's how you can get my exclusive reporting straight to your inbox. And by becoming a paid subscriber, you get exclusives first, and it's a way to support my independent journalism. I want to thank my producer, Erica Benate. I want to thank Abby Baker, who does my social media and research. And I want to thank Adam Stewart on the graphics. See you again tomorrow.